Hello there, and welcome. Tonight we drift into one of the universe's most mysterious dimensions, time itself. We'll explore the strange and wonderful ways time moves through our lives, how it bends and stretches in ways that might surprise you. Some of what we discover will feel familiar, like the way a childhood summer seemed to last forever. Others will be mind-bending, like how time can actually slow down when you're in danger. But each insight will reveal something profound about this invisible force that carries us from moment to moment. This evening, we'll wander through a collection of remarkable truths about time, glimpses into a world where seconds can feel like hours, where memories can stretch across decades in an instant, and where the very fabric of reality bends around the ticking of a clock. You might find yourself drifting towards sleep or simply letting these ideas flow quietly through your mind. If you enjoy these journeys into the mysteries of science, feel free to like and subscribe below and share your thoughts in the comments. But for now, all you need to do is get comfortable. Let your breathing slow, your mind soften, and allow the wonder of time to wash gently over you. Let's begin. Your brain processes dangerous moments in slow motion. When faced with a sudden threat, time seems to stretch like taffy. A car swerving toward you, a glass falling from a table, a stumble downstairs. These moments unfold with crystal clarity as if the world has switched to slow motion. This isn't just your imagination. During intense fear or surprise, your brain's emergency systems flood your body with stress hormones while simultaneously recording far more sensory details than usual. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, works overtime to capture every possible piece of information that might help you survive. When you recall these moments later, the extra detail makes them feel like they lasted much longer than they actually did. It's as if your mind becomes a high-speed camera during crisis, capturing hundreds of frames per second instead of the usual 24. Children experience time at a completely different pace than adults. To a 5-year-old, a single year represents 20% of their entire existence-year-old that same year. To a 50 is just 2% of their life experience. This mathematical reality helps explain why childhood summers felt endless while adult years seem to vanish in a blink. But the difference goes deeper than simple proportions. Young brains are constantly processing novel experiences, meeting new people, learning new skills, visiting new places. Each fresh encounter creates rich, detailed memories that make time feel expansive. Adult routines, by contrast, blend together into familiar patterns. The commute to work, the same coffee shop, the predictable evening ritual. These repeated experiences create fewer, distinct memories, making weeks and months collapse into each other like a shuffled deck of cards. Your internal clock runs on a 25-hour cycle. Deep within your brain lies a cluster of cells called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, your body's master timekeeper. Left to its own devices, this biological clock would run on a cycle slightly longer than 24 hours. Every morning, sunlight hitting your eyes resets this internal timer, synchronizing it with Earth's rotation. Without this daily reset, you would gradually drift later and later, your sleep and wake time shifting like a slow-motion time traveler. This is why jet lag feels so disorienting and why people living in caves or underground bunkers for extended periods develop sleep schedules that drift away from the outside world. Your body carries its own version of time, one that marches to a slightly different drummer than the spinning planet beneath your feet. Memories can make time feel elastic in your mind, Think of the last time you were bored, waiting in a doctor's office or sitting through a tedious meeting. Minutes crawled by like hours. Now think of the last time you were completely absorbed in something you loved, reading a captivating book, or having an engaging conversation with a friend. Hours vanished like minutes. This happens because your brain uses the number of memories formed as a rough measure of how much time has passed. Rich, engaging experiences create many distinct memories, making the time feel full and substantial when you look back. But in the moment, when you're deeply focused, conscious awareness of time fades completely. Boring experiences create few memorable moments, so they feel endless as they happen, but barely register in your long-term memory of the day. Time moves faster when you're having fun, but slower when you're learning. The phrase, "time flies when you're having fun," captures a real psychological phenomenon. During enjoyable activities, your attention becomes so absorbed that you stop monitoring the clock. Your brain dedicates its resources to the pleasurable experience rather than tracking time's passage. Learning something new has the opposite effect. When your mind works hard to process unfamiliar information, it creates more detailed mental records. These rich memories make the learning period feel longer in retrospect. A day spent mastering a new skill feels substantial and meaningful when you remember it later, even if the hours seem to pass normally while you were engaged in the work. Your brain can travel through time while you sleep. During dreams, your mind routinely jumps between past, present, and future without following any logical sequence. You might find yourself as a child in your childhood home, then suddenly appear as an adult in a place you've never been, then shift to a conversation with someone from years ago. This temporal chaos happens because the brain regions responsible for maintaining linear time awareness become less active during sleep. Meanwhile, memory centers activate randomly, pulling fragments from different time periods and weaving them into surreal narratives. In dreams, you become an accidental time traveler, visiting moments that never existed except in the strange theater of your sleeping mind. Emotions can stretch or compress your experience of time. A moment of pure joy feels timeless, as if you could live forever in that single instant. A period of deep sadness seems to drag endlessly, each hour feeling like a day. Fear makes seconds feel like minutes, while love can make hours disappear without notice. These shifts happen because emotions change how your brain processes temporal information. Strong feelings activate memory systems more intensely, creating richer, more detailed records of experience. They also affect your attention, either narrowing your focus to the present moment or scattering it across worries about the future and regrets about the past. In this way, your emotional state becomes a lens that can magnify or compress time's passage through your awareness. Your brain has multiple timing systems working simultaneously. While you consciously track minutes and hours, your brain operates several different clocks at once. One system handles very short intervals, helping you catch a ball or keep rhythm with music. Another manages longer periods, like knowing when you're hungry or tired. A third tracks the passage of days and seasons through hormone cycles and sleep patterns. These timing systems usually work together harmoniously, but they can become disconnected. Jet lag scrambles your daily rhythms while leaving your short-term timing intact. Certain medications can affect one timing system while leaving others undisturbed. You exist within a symphony of internal clocks, each keeping its own tempo while contributing to your overall sense of time. Flow. Time perception changes as you age in predictable ways. Children live in an expanded present where each day feels significant and substantial. Teenagers begin to develop a stronger sense of future, making plans and setting goals that stretch months ahead. Young adults often experience time as acceleration, with years passing more quickly as responsibilities multiply. Middle age brings a heightened awareness of time's limits, a recognition that years are finite and precious. Older adults often report that recent events feel compressed, while distant memories remain vivid and detailed. These changes reflect shifts in brain chemistry, life circumstances, and the accumulating weight of experience. Your relationship with time evolves throughout your life, like a long conversation that deepens with each passing year. Waiting changes your brain's perception of duration. When you're waiting for something important, whether it's a text message response or medical test results, time seems to crawl. This happens because anticipation activates your brain's monitoring systems, making you hyper-aware of each passing moment. Your attention repeatedly checks for the awaited event, and each check makes you more conscious of time's passage. Uncertain waits feel longer than predictable ones because your brain can't estimate when the waiting will end. A 2-minute delay for a text feels eternal, while a 2-minute wait for a scheduled bus passes normally. The quality of waiting matters more than its duration. Anxiety stretches time while distraction compresses it. Your body temperature affects how fast time feels. When your core body temperature rises, whether from fever, exercise, or hot weather, your internal clock speeds up slightly. This makes external time feel like it's moving more slowly relative to your internal sense of duration. When your temperature drops, the opposite occurs. Your internal timer slows down, making external time feel like it's racing past. This connection between temperature and time perception may have evolved to help our ancestors adjust their behavior to different environmental conditions. A fever patient lying in bed often reports that hours drag by endlessly, while someone shivering in the cold might be surprised by how quickly time passes. Music can manipulate your sense of time in surprising ways. Fast-paced music makes time feel like it's moving quickly, while slow melodies stretch moments into longer experiences. But the effect goes beyond simple tempo. Familiar songs feel shorter than unfamiliar ones because your brain predicts their structure and progression. Complex music with unexpected changes captures more attention, creating richer memories that make the listening time feel more substantial. Musicians often enter flow states where hours of practice feel like minutes, their consciousness merging completely with the temporal structure of the music they're creating. In this way, melody becomes a vehicle for time travel, carrying both performer and listener into altered states of temporal experience. Your brain fills gaps in time without you realizing it. When you blink, your visual system goes offline for about 0.3 of a second. Yet you never experience these tiny blackouts because your brain seamlessly edits them out of your conscious experience. This same process happens during brief distractions or moments of absent-mindedness. Your brain creates the illusion of continuous time by filling in small gaps with predictions and assumptions. Sometimes this editing system makes mistakes, creating the strange sensation that time has jumped forward unexpectedly. You might suddenly realize you've been driving for several miles without conscious awareness, or find yourself at the bottom of a staircase with no memory of descending. These temporal blind spots reveal that your experience of time's continuity is partly constructed by your brain's editorial processes. Caffeine can speed up your internal clock. The stimulant doesn't just make you feel more alert, it actually accelerates your brain's timing mechanisms. Under the influence of caffeine, your internal sense of duration runs faster than normal, making external time feel like it's dragging. A coffee-fueled morning at work might feel endless because your sped-up internal clock makes every actual minute feel longer than 60 seconds. This effect helps explain why caffeine withdrawal often includes a sense that time is moving too quickly. Without the stimulant's acceleration, your normal timing feels sluggish by comparison. The simple act of drinking coffee subtly alters your relationship with time's passage, turning you into a slightly different temporal being. Meditation can expand your experience of the present moment. Regular meditation practice changes how your brain processes temporal information. Experienced meditators often report that present moments feel richer and more expansive, as if they can slow down and fully inhabit each instant. This happens because meditation trains attention to focus completely on immediate experience, rather than wandering between past memories and future concerns. Brain scans show that meditation affects regions involved in time perception, reducing activity in areas that normally track duration and increasing activity in networks associated with present moment awareness. In deep meditative states, the usual boundaries between past, present, and future can dissolve entirely, creating experiences of timelessness that feel more real than ordinary clock time. Your expectations about time can become self-fulfilling prophecies. If you believe a task will take forever, it often does feel endless when you're doing it. If you expect an enjoyable experience to pass quickly, it usually seems to zip by. These expectations work by influencing where you direct your attention. When you anticipate boredom, you monitor time's passage more closely, which makes duration feel longer. When you expect enjoyment, you become absorbed in the activity itself, losing track of temporal progression. This psychological principle explains why dreaded appointments often feel longer than anticipated pleasant events of the same duration. Your beliefs about time's passage help create the very temporal experience you expect to have. And so we drift deeper into time's mysteries, each revelation opening new questions about this invisible dimension that shapes every moment of our existence. The clock on the wall ticks its steady rhythm, but within your mind, time dances to countless different beats, speeding up and slowing down, stretching and compressing according to laws we're only beginning to understand. Time zones create invisible boundaries that reshape human behavior. When you cross from one time zone to another, you're not just changing clocks, you're entering a different temporal reality. Communities separated by mere miles can live in completely different time worlds, with one town eating dinner while the neighboring town is preparing for bed. These artificial divisions create fascinating social experiments. People living near time zone borders often develop split temporal identities, working in one zone while sleeping in another. Their bodies must constantly negotiate between multiple time systems, creating a form of permanent, low-level jet lag. Border towns sometimes see crime rates shift as criminals exploit the confusion between different temporal jurisdictions. Time zones reveal, how deeply human society depends on shared temporal agreements, invisible contracts that synchronize millions of lives across vast distances. Your phone is subtly training your brain's time perception. Every notification creates a small disruption in your natural time flow, fragmenting continuous experience into bite-sized moments. Your brain begins to expect these interruptions, developing a kind of temporal anxiety when they don't arrive on schedule. Studies show that people who frequently check their phones lose the ability to estimate longer durations accurately. A 10-minute wait feels unbearable because your brain has adapted to constant stimulation every few seconds. The blue light from screens also disrupts your circadian rhythms, creating a disconnect between your biological clock and your conscious awareness of time. In essence, digital devices are rewiring your temporal experience, creating a new kind of human being, that exists in perpetual present moment fragments rather than flowing temporal continuity. Nostalgia can transport you through time more effectively than any machine. When a particular scent triggers a vivid childhood memory, you don't just remember the past, you temporarily inhabit it. Your brain activates the same neural networks that were engaged during the original experience, creating a form of mental time travel. These nostalgic journeys often feel more real and immediate than present moment experiences. The remembered sunlight feels warmer. The recalled laughter sounds clearer. The past emotions surge through you with startling intensity. Neuroscientists believe this happens because nostalgic memories bypass normal temporal processing, connecting directly to emotional and sensory centers. For those brief moments, the boundaries between past and present dissolve completely, allowing you to exist simultaneously in multiple time periods. Seasonal changes alter your brain's relationship with duration. During long summer days, when sunlight stretches from early morning until late evening, time feels abundant and leisurely. Your brain's production of melatonin shifts later, creating a natural expansion of waking hours. Winter's shortened daylight compresses your sense of available time, making days feel rushed despite containing the same 24 hours. These seasonal shifts affect more than just mood, they change how you plan, work, and relate to temporal deadlines. People living in extreme northern or southern latitudes where seasonal differences are most dramatic often report feeling like they live multiple lives throughout the year, each season bringing its own distinct temporal personality. Your heartbeat creates a hidden rhythm that influences time perception. Your brain constantly monitors your cardiac rhythm, using it as one of many internal timing references. When your heart rate increases during exercise or excitement, your perception of external duration can shift. Time might feel compressed during intense physical activity because your accelerated heartbeat makes your internal clock run faster. Conversely, the slow, steady heartbeat of deep relaxation can make moments feel more spacious and extended. Some meditation practices specifically focus on heart rhythm awareness, using the pulse as an anchor for time perception. In this way, every heartbeat becomes a small temporal marker, a biological metronome that helps orchestrate your experience of duration and sequence. Language shapes how different cultures experience time's passage. Some languages have no future tense, describing upcoming events as if they were happening now. Speakers of these languages often show different brain activity patterns when thinking about future events, suggesting that linguistic structure actually changes temporal cognition. Other languages use spatial metaphors for time that reverse Western conventions, describing the past as ahead of you because you can see it clearly, while the future lies behind you in the unknown. These linguistic differences create distinct temporal worldviews. where speakers of different languages literally inhabit different time universes despite sharing the same physical moments. Your immune system operates on its own complex schedule. White blood cells patrol your body according to circadian rhythms, with some immune responses stronger during certain hours. This temporal immune system explains why you're more likely to get sick during periods of schedule disruption and why vaccines given at specific times of day can be more effective. Your body temperature, hormone levels, and cellular repair processes all follow intricate timing patterns that evolved over millions of years. When you disrupt these rhythms through shift work or irregular sleep, you're essentially forcing your immune system to work against its natural temporal programming, creating vulnerability windows that pathogens can exploit. Gravity affects how time passes, even in everyday life. Einstein's theories aren't just abstract physics, they influence your daily experience in subtle but measurable ways. Time moves slightly faster on the upper floors of tall buildings because gravity weakens with altitude. The difference is incredibly small, measured in nanoseconds, but atomic clocks can detect it. If you spent your entire life on the 100th floor of a skyscraper, you would age microseconds more than someone living at sea level. This gravitational time dilation means that your head ages slightly faster than your feet, though the difference is far too small to notice. Every time you climb stairs or take an elevator, you're experiencing the same relativistic effects that govern black holes and distant galaxies. Pain can dramatically slow your perception of time's passage. When you're experiencing physical discomfort, whether from injury, illness, or medical procedures, minutes can feel like hours. This temporal stretching happens because pain demands intense attention, making you hyper-aware of each passing second. Your brain monitors the painful sensation constantly, and this vigilant attention makes you acutely conscious of duration. A dental procedure that takes 20 minutes might feel like it lasted an hour because your nervous system records every moment with heightened clarity. Understanding this effect can be helpful. Knowing that pain naturally distorts time perception can make difficult experiences feel more manageable when you recognize that the apparent endlessness is partly an illusion, created by your brain's protective attention systems. Sleep debt creates a temporal fog that clouds your perception of duration. When you're chronically sleep deprived, your ability to track time becomes impaired in subtle but significant ways. You might consistently underestimate how long tasks will take, or lose track of how much time has passed during activities. This happens because sleep loss affects the brain regions responsible for attention and working memory, the same areas involved in time perception. People with significant sleep debt often report that days blur together, with poor distinction between different time periods. Their brains struggle to create the distinct memory markers that normally separate one temporal experience from another, resulting in a kind of temporal confusion where past and present blend together in an exhausting haze. The speed of modern life may be literally rewiring human time perception. Compared to previous generations, contemporary humans process information faster, make decisions more quickly, and expect more immediate responses from their environment. This acceleration isn't just cultural, it may be creating measurable changes in how brains process temporal information. Children growing up with high-speed internet and instant communication show different patterns of attention and patience than those raised in slower-paced environments. Some researchers worry that we're creating a generation that struggles with longer-term thinking and planning because their temporal perception has adapted to an environment of constant rapid change. The question remains whether this represents evolution or degradation, tie-in of human time consciousness. Temperature changes can create temporal illusions that fool your brain. When you step from a cold environment into a warm one, or vice versa, your perception of time can shift dramatically for several minutes. The sudden temperature change affects your nervous system's processing speed, creating a brief period where your internal sense of duration doesn't match clock time. This effect is most noticeable during extreme temperature transitions, like entering an air-conditioned building on a hot day or stepping outside into winter cold. Your brain needs time to recalibrate its temporal processing to the new thermal environment, during which external events might feel unusually fast or slow. These thermal time distortions remind us how deeply environmental conditions influence our most basic PI, perceptions of reality's flow, and so we continue our gentle drift through time's endless mysteries, each insight revealing new layers of complexity. In this dimension we inhabit so intimately, yet understand so incompletely. The steady rhythm of your breath marks moments passing, while somewhere deep in your mind, multiple clocks tick at their own speeds, creating the rich symphony of temporal experience that accompanies you through every waking and sleeping hour. Your body's repair systems follow ancient temporal rhythms. While you sleep, your cells don't simply rest, they enter a carefully orchestrated dance of regeneration that has been refined over millions of years. Skin cells divide most rapidly around midnight, muscle tissue repairs itself in the early morning hours, and your liver processes toxins according to a precise schedule that peaks between 1 and 3 a.m. This cellular choreography explains why night shift workers often experience health problems that go beyond simple fatigue. Their bodies are trying to perform maintenance during daylight hours when these systems are naturally less active, like trying to tune an orchestra while the symphony is playing. Your wounds heal faster when you maintain regular sleep schedules, not just because use rest is Re's itself operates storative, but because healing on a temporal program written into your genetic code. Memory formation speeds up during emotionally significant moments. When something important happens, whether joyful or traumatic, your brain doesn't just record the event more vividly, it actually processes information faster. The neurotransmitters released during intense emotional experiences accelerate the formation of memory traces, allowing your mind to capture more detail in less time. This is why people often report remembering conversations word for word during crisis moments, or being able to recall every detail of a wedding day years later. Your brain essentially overclocks itself during significant events, running its memory systems at higher speed to ensure nothing important is lost. These accelerated recording periods create dense clusters of detailed memories that can make brief moments feel like they lasted much longer when you revisit them later. Different parts of your brain age at different temporal rates. While your body follows a relatively predictable aging timeline, your brain's various regions mature and decline according to their own unique schedules. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning and decision-making, doesn't fully develop until your mid-20s, which explains why teenagers and young adults often struggle with long-term thinking. Meanwhile, your emotional processing centers mature much earlier, creating a temporal mismatch that influences behavior throughout adolescence. As you age, some brain regions maintain their function well into later decades, while others begin declining in your 30s. This creates a constantly shifting landscape of cognitive abilities, where different mental functions peak and fade according to their own biological clocks. Routine can make entire years disappear from conscious memory. When your days follow predictable patterns, your brain stops creating distinct memory markers for each experience. The Tuesday that feels identical to last Tuesday gets filed away in the same mental category, creating a temporal blur where weeks and months compress into undifferentiated chunks of time. This is why people often struggle to remember what they did on specific dates during routine periods of their lives, while unusual events stand out with crystal clarity. Your brain treats repetitive experiences as a single extended event rather than multiple separate occurrences, which saves mental energy but creates the unsettling sensation that time is vanishing without leaving traces. Breaking routine even slightly can restore your sense of temporal richness, making days feel distinct and memorable again. Your brain predicts the future constantly, creating temporal expectations. Every moment, your nervous system generates predictions about what will happen next. From anticipating the next word in a sentence to preparing your muscles for the next step while walking. These predictions create a kind of temporal momentum that influences how you experience duration. When events unfold as expected, time feels smooth and normal. When something unexpected happens, your brain must recalibrate its predictions, creating a temporal hiccup that makes the surprising moment feel longer or more significant. This predictive system explains why familiar routes feel shorter than new ones, why reruns of favorite shows seem to pass quickly, and why unexpected delays feel more frustrating than anticipated ones. Your brain is constantly living a few seconds in the future, and reality must constantly catch up. Social interactions create shared temporal bubbles. When you're engaged in deep conversation with someone, both your brains begin to synchronize their temporal processing. Brain scans show that people in meaningful dialogue develop similar patterns of neural activity, creating a kind of shared time experience where both participants lose track of duration in similar ways. This temporal synchronization helps explain why good conversations feel timeless, while awkward social interactions make every second feel painfully long. Groups of people can create collective temporal experiences where everyone's sense of time shifts together. Religious ceremonies, concerts, and group meditations often achieve this temporal unity, where individual time consciousness merges into a shared flow that feels larger than any single person's experience. Your spatial environment influences temporal perception in unexpected ways. High ceilings make time feel more expansive, while cramped spaces compress your sense of duration. Bright lights accelerate your internal clock slightly, making time feel like it's moving faster, while dim lighting has the opposite effect. The colors around you also influence temporal experience, with warm colors like red and orange creating a sense of urgency that makes time feel rushed, while cool blues and greens promote a more relaxed relationship with duration. These environmental effects are subtle but measurable, and interior designers increasingly consider temporal psychology when creating spaces. The physical world around you is constantly whispering suggestions about how time should feel, influencing your temporal experience through channels you rarely notice consciously. Hunger and thirst create their own temporal distortions. When your blood sugar drops or you become dehydrated, your brain's timing systems become less accurate. Minutes can feel longer when you're hungry because your attention keeps returning to your physical needs, making you hyper-aware of time's passage. Extreme hunger can create temporal confusion where people lose track of hours or even days. Conversely, the satisfaction that follows eating can create a pleasant temporal compression where time seems to flow more smoothly. Your body's basic needs operate on their own schedules, and when these biological rhythms are disrupted, they can pull your conscious time perception in unexpected directions. The simple act of staying properly nourished helps maintain stable temporal awareness throughout your day. Dreams can rehearse future scenarios across different timelines. During sleep, your brain doesn't just process past experiences, it also runs simulations of potential futures. These dream rehearsals often involve temporal manipulation, where you might experience years of imaginary events in a single night's sleep, or live through the same scenario with different outcomes across multiple timelines. Some researchers believe this temporal flexibility in dreams serves as practice for real-world decision-making, allowing your brain to explore the consequences of different choices without the constraints of linear time. The emotional responses you develop to dream scenarios can influence your waking behavior, even when the dreams themselves are quickly forgotten. In this way, your sleeping mind becomes a temporal laboratory where different versions of your future self experiment with possibility. Technology is creating new forms of temporal fragmentation. The constant switching between digital platforms, each with its own pace and rhythm, is training human brains to exist in multiple temporal streams simultaneously. You might be reading a news article about events from yesterday, watching a live video stream of something happening now, while receiving notifications about future appointments, all within the same few seconds. This temporal multitasking creates a new kind of consciousness that previous generations never experienced, where past, present, and future information compete for attention in real time. Some researchers worry that this fragmentation is making it harder for people to maintain coherent temporal narratives about their own lives, creating a scattered sense of identity that exists in perpetual present tense fragments rather than flowing temporal stories. And here in the quiet of this moment, as these thoughts about time's nature drift through your awareness like clouds across an evening sky, you might notice how each insight seems to slow down and settle, creating its own small pocket of expanded time where understanding deepens with each gentle breath. Each soft settling of your body into rest, each gradual release of the day's temporal concerns into the welcoming embrace of sleep's approaching timelessness. Your circadian rhythm can predict your personality traits in surprising ways. People whose internal clocks naturally prefer later bedtimes often score higher on measures of creativity and openness to new experiences. These night owls tend to think more flexibly and generate more original ideas during their peak evening hours. Meanwhile, those whose biological clocks favor early rising typically show greater conscientiousness and emotional stability. Their brains seem optimized for structured thinking and steady decision-making during morning hours. This isn't simply about sleep habits or lifestyle choices. Brain imaging studies reveal that early birds and night owls have different patterns of neural connectivity, suggesting that your temporal preferences reflect fundamental differences in how your mind processes information and responds to the world around you. the act of counting can alter your perception of duration. When you consciously count seconds during a waiting period, time often feels longer than when you let your mind wander freely. This happens because counting requires sustained attention to temporal progression, making you acutely aware of each passing moment. Paradoxically, this focused awareness of time makes duration feel more extended rather than helping it pass quickly. Your brain interprets the mental effort of counting as evidence that significant time must be passing. Children often discover this effect intuitively, finding that counting makes unwanted experiences feel even longer. The simple act of directing attention toward time's passage fundamentally changes how that passage feels, revealing the deeply interactive relationship between consciousness and temporal experience. Jet lag affects your decision-making abilities in ways that persist for weeks. When your internal clock becomes desynchronized with local time, the disruption cascades through multiple brain systems beyond just sleep and wake cycles. Your prefrontal cortex, responsible for complex reasoning and impulse control, becomes less efficient at processing temporal information. This can make you more likely to choose immediate rewards over long-term benefits, even after you feel like you've recovered from the initial fatigue. Business travelers often report making impulsive purchases or agreeing to unfavorable deals during the weeks following long flights. The temporal confusion doesn't just affect when you feel sleepy, it subtly alters your relationship with future consequences and delayed gratification. Your brain creates false temporal memories during periods of high stress. When you're under intense pressure, your mind sometimes manufactures memories of events happening in different sequences than they actually occurred. A stressful day at work might be remembered with meetings happening in the wrong order, or conversations feeling like they took place hours apart when they were actually minutes apart. This temporal scrambling occurs because stress hormones interfere with the brain regions responsible for encoding timestamps on memories. Your mind preserves the emotional content and general details of stressful experiences while losing track of their precise temporal relationships. These false temporal memories can feel completely convincing, creating confusion about what actually ended when during difficult periods. Anticipation creates its own temporal reality that can overshadow actual experiences. The weeks spent looking forward to a vacation often generate more happiness than the vacation itself. Your brain's reward systems activate more intensely during anticipation than during the actual pleasured event, creating a temporal paradox where the future feels more rewarding than the present. This anticipation effect explains why people often feel slightly disappointed by experiences they've looked forward to for months. The imagined future version feels more vivid and perfect than reality can match. Understanding this effect can help you savor anticipation as its own form of enjoyment, rather than simply a prelude to the main event. Your internal sense of rhythm connects to temporal perception in unexpected ways. People with natural musical ability often show superior time estimation skills, even in non-musical contexts. They can guess how long tasks will take with greater accuracy and maintain better awareness of time's passage during daily activities. This connection exists because rhythm processing and time perception share overlapping brain networks. Musicians often report that practicing improves their general time management abilities, not just their musical timing. The reverse is also true. People who struggle with rhythm often have difficulty with temporal planning and time awareness. Your sense of beat and your sense of duration spring from the same neurological wellspring. Modern lighting is disrupting humanity's ancient relationship with natural time. Artificial illumination allows us to extend productive hours far beyond sunset, but this temporal freedom comes with hidden costs. Your brain relies on light levels to calibrate multiple internal clocks, and constant bright lighting scrambles these timing signals. LED screens emit blue light that particularly confuses your circadian system, making it difficult to distinguish between natural day and artificial day. This temporal confusion affects not just sleep, but hormone production, immune function, and cognitive performance. Many people now live in a kind of perpetual temporal twilight, where their brains never receive clear signals about what time it actually is in the natural world. Your childhood temporal experiences shape your adult relationship with time. Children who grew up in households' deschedules often develop anxiety with rigidity around time management as adults, constantly worrying about being late or wasting time. Conversely, those raised with flexible time structures sometimes struggle with punctuality and deadline pressure in professional settings. These early temporal patterns become deeply embedded in your nervous system, influencing how you feel about time pressure throughout your life. The way your family talked about time, whether it was treated as scarce and precious or abundant and flexible, continues to influence your internal dialogue about temporal demands decades later. Physical exercise can recalibrate your internal clock in powerful ways. Regular aerobic activity doesn't just improve your physical health, it helps synchronize your various biological rhythms. People who exercise consistently often report better time estimation abilities and more stable energy levels throughout the day. Exercise appears to strengthen the communication between different timing systems in your body, creating more coherent temporal experience. The effect is most pronounced when exercise happens at consistent times each day, creating a temporal anchor that helps organize other biological processes. Your muscles and cardiovascular system operate on rhythmic cycles that can help train your brain's timing networks when properly coordinated. Cultural attitudes toward time create invisible pressure that affects mental health. Societies that emphasize speed and efficiency often produce higher rates of temporal anxiety, where people feel constantly rushed and behind schedule. This cultural time pressure can become internalized, creating chronic stress even during moments when there's no actual time constraint. Different cultures have vastly different relationships with punctuality, planning, and temporal flexibility. Moving between these cultural time zones can be as disorienting as crossing geographic time zones, requiring adjustment to completely different temporal expectations and social rhythms. Your brain's temporal processing changes during different phases of attention. When you're highly focused on a task, your sense of time's passage often diminishes or disappears entirely. This temporal compression happens because your brain allocates most of its processing power to the focused activity, leaving fewer resources available for time monitoring. During periods of scattered attention, the opposite occurs. Your awareness of duration becomes heightened as your mind constantly checks how much time is passing. This explains why monotonous tasks feel endless while engaging activities make hours vanish. Your relationship with time is intimately connected to the quality and direction of your attention. Chronic pain creates a unique form of temporal suffering. People living with persistent physical discomfort often report that time moves differently for them than for healthy individuals. Pain demands constant attention, making sufferers hyper-aware of each passing moment. Minutes can feel like hours when every second brings renewed discomfort. This temporal stretching adds a psychological dimension to physical suffering, where the anticipation of continued pain makes each moment feel heavier and more significant. Pain also disrupts sleep patterns and daily rhythms, creating temporal chaos that compounds the original suffering with confusion about when things happened and how much time has passed. Your brain processes temporal information differently in each hemisphere. The left side of your brain tends to handle precise, sequential timing, like keeping track of beats in music or following step-by-step instructions. The right hemisphere specializes in broader temporal patterns, like recognizing the overall rhythm of a conversation or sensing the emotional timing of social interactions. Damage to different brain regions can create specific temporal deficits. Some stroke patients lose the ability to estimate short durations while maintaining normal awareness of longer time periods. Others can keep perfect musical time but struggle to plan activities that unfold over hours or days. Your unified experience of time emerges from the coordination of multiple specialized timing systems. Meditation practices from different traditions manipulate time perception in distinct ways. Focused attention meditation, where you concentrate on a single object like breath, tends to create temporal stability and present moment expansion. Open awareness meditation, where you observe thoughts without attachment, often produces a sense of timelessness where the usual boundaries between past and future dissolve. Movement-based practices like Tai Chi create flowing temporal experiences where time feels like a river rather than discrete moments. These different approaches to temporal consciousness suggest that your normal relationship with time is just one possible way of experiencing duration, and that other forms of temporal awareness can be cultivated through practice. The speed at which you speak reveals information about your internal temporal state. When people are anxious or excited, their speech rate typically increases as their internal sense of urgency accelerates. During depression, speech often slows as the person's internal temporal experience becomes sluggish and heavy. These changes in verbal tempo reflect broader alterations in how the brain processes time during different emotional states. Therapists sometimes use speech timing as a diagnostic tool, listening for changes in temporal patterns that might indicate shifts in mental health. Your voice carries temporal information that others can unconsciously detect, influencing how they respond to you in subtle but significant ways. Temperature regulation in your body follows complex temporal patterns that influence behavior. Your core body temperature naturally fluctuates throughout the day according to circadian rhythms, dropping in the late evening to promote sleep and rising in the morning to support alertness. These thermal cycles affect your cognitive performance in predictable ways. Most people think most clearly when their body temperature is rising in the morning and early afternoon. Problem-solving abilities often peak when temperature is highest, while creative insights sometimes emerge during the cooling periods of evening. Understanding your personal thermal rhythms can help you schedule different types of mental work for optimal performance. Your brain maintains separate timing systems for different sensory experiences. The neural networks that process visual timing operate independently from those handling auditory rhythm, which explains why some people can keep perfect time with music but struggle to judge visual motion or vice versa. These separate timing systems usually coordinate smoothly, but they can become desynchronized during certain neurological conditions or under the influence of various substances. When your sensory timing systems fall out of alignment, you might experience the strange sensation that sounds and sights are happening at slightly different speeds, creating a temporal mismatch that makes the world feel subtly off-kilter. Social media algorithms are designed to manipulate your temporal experience. The endless scroll of content creates an artificial sense of time abundance, making minutes feel like hours as your brain processes a constant stream of novel information. But this apparent temporal expansion comes with a hidden cost. The fragmented nature of social media content trains your attention to expect constant novelty, making real-world experiences feel slower and less engaging by comparison. Many people report losing hours to social platforms without realizing how much time has passed, then feeling disoriented when they return to normal temporal awareness. These platforms essentially hack your brain's reward systems, creating temporal distortions that can become addictive. Your digestive system operates on its own circadian rhythm that influences energy and mood. The production of digestive enzymes, stomach acid, and intestinal hormones follows a precise temporal schedule that evolved to optimize nutrient processing at different times of day. Eating at irregular times disrupts this digestive rhythm, which can create temporal confusion that extends beyond just stomach discomfort. Many people experience mood swings and energy crashes when their eating patterns don't align with their digestive clock. Shift workers often struggle with this temporal mismatch, finding that their irregular meal times compound the other temporal disruptions of non-standard schedules. Your brain creates temporal landmarks that help organize memory and experience. Significant events like birthdays, holidays, and major life changes serve as temporal anchors that help you locate other memories in time. These landmarks create a kind of mental timeline that makes it easier to remember when things happen relative to these reference points. People who lack regular temporal landmarks, such as those living in highly routine environments, often struggle with temporal memory and may feel like their days blur together without distinction. Creating artificial temporal landmarks through regular special events or ritual activities can help restore a sense of temporal structure and meaning to daily experience. The phenomenon of temporal binding links separate events into unified experiences. When you see lightning and hear thunder, your brain automatically connects these two sensory events even though they arrive at different times. This temporal binding creates the illusion of simultaneity for events that are actually separated by small time intervals. The process happens unconsciously and can be fooled by clever manipulation. Magicians and filmmakers often exploit temporal binding to create illusions where cause and effect appear to happen simultaneously when they're actually carefully timed sequences. Your unified experience of reality depends on your brain's ability to weave separate temporal threads into coherent narratives. And as these insights settle into the quiet spaces of your mind like snowflakes landing on still water, you might notice how your own relationship with time begins to soften, how the urgency of minutes and hours gives way to something deeper and more restful. A recognition that time itself is far stranger and more flexible than the rigid schedules and digital clocks would have us believe. And in this recognition, there is a kind of peace, a gentle release from temporal anxiety into the flowing present moment where breath marks time in its own ancient rhythm, and thoughts drift like clouds across the vast sky of consciousness, unhurried and serene. Your brain treats familiar and unfamiliar locations as different temporal territories. When you visit a new place, time often feels expanded and rich with detail. Your mind works harder to process the unfamiliar sights, sounds, and spatial relationships, creating denser memory traces that make the experience feel longer and more substantial. A single afternoon exploring a new city can feel like it contained more time than an entire week in your familiar neighborhood. This happens because your brain dedicates more resources to encoding novel environments, treating each new corner and unexpected sight as significant information worth preserving. Meanwhile, walking through your daily routine requires minimal conscious processing, allowing hours to slip past with barely any memorable markers distinguish one day from the next. The temperature of your environment can shift your internal temporal rhythms in subtle ways. Warm spaces tend to accelerate your sense of time's passage slightly, making minutes feel shorter and encouraging faster decision-making. Cool environments often have the opposite effect, creating a sense of temporal spaciousness that promotes more deliberate thinking. This thermal influence on time perception may stem from evolutionary adaptations, where seasonal temperature changes signal different survival priorities. Ancient humans living through cold winters needed to conserve energy and think carefully about resource use, while warm seasons encouraged more rapid activity and quick responses to opportunities. Modern air conditioning and heating systems can create artificial temporal microclimates, that influence your behavior in ways you might never consciously notice. Your brain processes time differently when you're moving versus standing still. Physical motion creates a sense of temporal momentum that can make experiences feel more dynamic and engaging. A conversation while walking often feels more energetic and time compressed than the same discussion held while sitting. This connection between movement and temporal perception extends to mental activity as well. Pacing while thinking can accelerate problem solving and make complex ideas feel more manageable. The rhythm of your footsteps creates a physical metronome that can help organize your thoughts and maintain attention. Even small movements like fidgeting or tapping can influence how time feels during otherwise static activities. The act of remembering actually changes the memories you're recalling. Each time you revisit a past experience, your brain reconstructs it slightly differently based on your current state of mind, recent experiences, and accumulated knowledge. This reconstruction process can alter the temporal qualities of memories, making past events feel closer or more distant, depending on your present circumstances. A childhood memory recalled during a stressful period might feel more intense and immediate than the same memory accessed during calm moments. Over time, frequently recalled memories can become temporally compressed, with events that originally unfolded over hours or days compressed into brief, vivid scenes that feel like they lasted only moments. Your social connections create shared temporal experiences that extend beyond individual consciousness. When you spend significant time with another person, your biological rhythms can begin to synchronize in subtle ways. Couples often develop similar sleep patterns, meal times, and even hormonal cycles over months or years together. Close friends may find themselves naturally coordinating their energy levels and attention spans during shared activities. This temporal synchronization happens unconsciously through constant micro-adjustments in behavior, creating bonds that exist not just in space, but in time. The disruption of these shared rhythms, such as when partners have conflicting work schedules, can create relationship stress that goes beyond simple inconvenience. Certain medications can alter your perception of duration in unexpected ways. Stimulants often accelerate your internal clock, making external time feel sluggish by comparison. A stimulant-enhanced afternoon at work might feel endless because your sped-up internal timer makes every actual minute feel longer than 60 seconds. Sedatives typically have the opposite effect, slowing your internal sense of duration and making time feel like it's racing past. Some psychiatric medications can create more complex temporal distortions, affecting not just the speed of time, but your ability to sequence events or estimate durations accurately. These pharmaceutical influences on time perception remind us how deeply temporal experience is connected to brain chemistry. The quality of light throughout your day programs multiple internal clocks simultaneously. Bright morning light doesn't just help you wake up, it sets the timing for dozens of biological processes that will unfold over the next 24 hours. The gradual dimming of evening light triggers a cascade of hormonal changes that prepare your body for sleep and cellular repair. Artificial lighting that doesn't follow natural patterns can desynchronize these various timing systems, creating internal temporal chaos. Office workers who spend entire days under fluorescent lights often report feeling disconnected from natural time rhythms, as if they're living in a temporal bubble separated from the cycling day and night outside. Your brain creates different types of temporal maps for different kinds of activities. Routine tasks like commuting or doing household chores get filed under compressed temporal categories where individual instances blend together into generalized time blocks. Novel or emotionally significant activities receive detailed temporal mapping with precise sequences and duration estimates. This selective temporal attention explains why you might remember exactly how long a first date lasted, but have no idea how much time you spent doing laundry last week. Your mind allocates temporal processing resources based on perceived importance, creating a hierarchy of time consciousness that prioritizes memorable experiences over routine maintenance. The rhythm of your breathing can influence your subjective experience of time's flow. Slow, deep breathing often creates a sense of temporal expansion where moments feel spacious and unhurried. Rapid, shallow breathing can make time feel compressed and urgent, even when there's no external pressure. This connection between respiration and temporal perception is so strong that many meditation traditions use breath awareness as a way to alter consciousness and achieve different states of temporal experience. Your breathing pattern serves as both a reflection of your temporal state and a tool for changing it, creating a feedback loop between body rhythm and time awareness. Seasonal affective patterns influence not just mood, but temporal perception across entire populations. During shorter winter days, many people experience a kind of temporal compression, where weeks seem to blend together without clear boundaries. The reduced daylight hours don't just affect sleep patterns, they can alter your sense of how much time is available each day for productive activity. Summer's extended daylight often creates the opposite effect, where days feel abundant with temporal possibility. These seasonal shifts in time perception can influence everything from productivity patterns to creative output. as entire communities unconsciously adjust their relationship with duration based on available natural light. Your brain maintains a constant prediction system about temporal sequences that influences how you experience surprise. When events unfold in expected patterns, your temporal prediction system runs smoothly in the background, allowing you to focus attention elsewhere. When something happens out of sequence or with unexpected timing, your brain must quickly recalibrate its temporal models, creating a moment of heightened awareness that makes the surprising event feel more significant. This predictive timing system explains why interrupted routines feel so disorienting and why perfectly timed comedy or music can be so satisfying to experience. The complexity of your environment affects how quickly time seems to pass. Simple, uniform spaces often make time feel slower because there's less sensory information for your brain to process. Complex, varied environments can make time feel faster because your attention constantly shifts between different elements, creating a sense of temporal momentum. This environmental effect on time perception influences everything from workplace design to therapeutic spaces. Hospitals often use this principle, creating calming, simplified environments that help patients feel less rushed and anxious about time passing during treatment or recovery. Your emotional state can create temporal echoes that extend far beyond the original feeling. A brief moment of joy might create a positive temporal glow that makes the following hours feel more pleasant and time-rich. Conversely, a few minutes of intense stress can cast a temporal shadow that makes subsequent time feel heavy and constrained. These emotional temporal effects can last much longer than the emotions themselves, influencing your relationship with duration throughout entire days. Understanding these temporal echoes can help explain why some days feel blessed with abundant time, while others feel cursed with temporal scarcity, even when the external circumstances are similar. Different types of music can entrain your brain to different temporal experiences. Classical music with complex temporal structures can enhance your ability to process sequential information and maintain sustained attention. Jazz and improvised music might encourage more flexible temporal thinking, helping you adapt to unexpected changes in rhythm and timing. Electronic music with precise beats can synchronize your internal rhythms to external temporal patterns, creating states of temporal entrainment where your consciousness aligns with the musical pulse. These musical influences on temporal cognition suggest that the soundtracks of our lives may be subtly shaping how we experience and process time. Your brain processes temporal information differently during various stages of learning. When you're first acquiring a new skill, time often feels slow and deliberate as your mind carefully processes each step and movement. As competence develops, temporal experience becomes more fluid and automatic. Master-level performance often involves a kind of temporal transcendence where conscious time awareness disappears entirely, replaced by intuitive timing that operates below the threshold of awareness. This progression from slow, conscious timing to automatic temporal flow represents one of the most profound transformations that occurs during skill development. The act of waiting creates its own unique temporal psychology that varies dramatically between individuals. Some people experience waiting as temporal expansion, where minutes stretch into what feels like hours of heightened awareness. Others seem to compress waiting time, maintaining their normal temporal sense even during extended delays. These individual differences in waiting psychology often correlate with personality traits like patience, anxiety levels, and attention control. Understanding your personal waiting style can help you develop strategies for managing temporal stress during unavoidable delays. Your brain's temporal processing systems can be trained and improved through specific practices. Musicians often develop superior time estimation abilities that extend beyond musical contexts into daily life. Athletes frequently show enhanced temporal precision in their movements and decision-making. Even simple activities like learning to juggle or practicing rhythmic exercises can strengthen your brain's timing networks, improving your overall relationship with duration and sequence. These improvements in temporal processing can enhance everything from coordination to planning abilities, suggesting that time consciousness is a skill that can be developed rather than a fixed capacity. The social context of temporal experiences dramatically influences how they feel and how you remember them. Shared temporal experiences, like waiting in line with friends or attending a concert with loved ones, often feel shorter and more pleasant than identical solo experiences. The presence of others seems to provide temporal distraction and emotional support that makes duration feel less burdensome. Conversely, socially awkward temporal situations, like uncomfortable silences in conversations, can feel endless even when they last only seconds. Your brain processes temporal information differently when you're alone versus when you're with others, creating distinct categories of temporal experience. Modern transportation technology has created new forms of temporal displacement that previous generations never experienced. High-speed travel allows you to move across vast distances in compressed time frames, creating a disconnect between spatial and temporal experience. A business trip that takes you across continents in a matter of hours can leave you feeling temporally disoriented, as if your body moved through space faster than your consciousness could follow. This technological compression of travel time has profound effects on how we experience distance, creating a world where geographic remoteness no longer correlates with temporal separation. Your brain creates temporal hierarchies that organize experiences at multiple timescales simultaneously. While you're consciously aware of immediate moments and hours, background processing systems track longer patterns of days, weeks, and seasons. These different temporal scales interact in complex ways, with longer rhythms influencing shorter ones and immediate experiences affecting broader temporal patterns. Disruption at any level of this temporal hierarchy can cascade through the entire system, explaining why jet lag or schedule changes can affect your sense of time for weeks after the initial disruption. The anticipation of temporal deadlines can alter your cognitive performance in ways that persist even after the deadline passes. The stress of time pressure doesn't just affect you during the actual constrained period, it can change how your brain processes information and makes decisions for hours or days afterward. Some people show improved focus and creativity under moderate time pressure, while others experience cognitive impairment that continues long after the temporal constraint is removed. These individual differences in temporal stress response can significantly influence career choices, lifestyle preferences, and overall life satisfaction. Your relationship with temporal technology reflects deeper aspects of your personality and cognitive style. People who constantly check clocks and scheduling apps often show different patterns of attention and anxiety than those who prefer to move through time more intuitively. Some individuals seem naturally attuned to mechanical time and external schedules, while others operate more effectively using internal temporal cues and flexible rhythms. These different approaches to temporal management represent fundamentally different ways of existing in time, each with its own advantages and challenges in modern society. The experience of temporal flow states can be cultivated through specific environmental and behavioral conditions. Optimal temporal flow often requires a balance between challenge and skill, clear goals, and immediate feedback. But it also depends on environmental factors like appropriate lighting, comfortable temperature, and minimal distractions. Some people can enter temporal flow states almost anywhere, while others require very specific conditions to achieve this altered relationship with time. Understanding your personal requirements for temporal flow can help you design environments and activities that promote this deeply satisfying experience of time transcendence. And so we drift deeper still into time's endless mysteries, each revelation adding another layer to our understanding of this invisible dimension that shapes every beat, every breath, every thought heart that moves through the quiet chambers of your mind. The clock may continue its mechanical counting somewhere in the distance, but here, in this space of gentle exploration, time becomes something softer and more forgiving, a river rather than a ruler, flowing around and through you with the same natural rhythm that carries you toward the peaceful shores of sleep. Your personal history with time creates a unique temporal fingerprint that influences every future experience. The way your family talked about time during childhood, whether it was treated as abundant or scarce, becomes embedded in your nervous system like a deep rhythm. Some people carry forward a sense of temporal urgency inherited from parents who were always rushing, while others maintain the calm, temporal confidence of families who move through life at their own pace. These early temporal patterns become so fundamental to your identity that changing them requires conscious effort and practice. Your temporal fingerprint affects how you approach deadlines, plan activities, and respond to unexpected delays throughout your entire life. The phenomenon of temporal contagion allows emotional states to spread through groups by altering shared time perception. When one person in a meeting becomes impatient, their temporal urgency can ripple through the entire room, making everyone feel like time is moving too slowly. Conversely, when someone radiates calm presence, they can create a temporal bubble of peace that makes others feel more relaxed about duration and deadlines. This temporal contagion happens through subtle behavioral cues, changes in speech rhythm, body language, and attention patterns that others unconsciously mirror. Understanding temporal contagion can help you become more aware of how your own relationship with time affects those around you. Your brain processes traumatic temporal experiences differently than normal memories. During intense trauma, your mind may record events with extreme temporal precision, capturing every second in vivid detail, or it may fragment time completely, creating memories where sequences become scrambled or entire periods disappear from conscious recall. These temporal distortions can persist for years, causing flashbacks that feel more immediate than present moment experiences. Healing from trauma often involves learning to restore normal temporal processing, helping the mind integrate difficult experiences into coherent timelines that don't overwhelm present moment awareness. The relationship between physical pain and temporal perception creates feedback loops that can amplify suffering. Chronic pain often makes time feel heavy and slow, which increases focus on the discomfort, which in turn makes time feel even more oppressive. Breaking these temporal pain cycles requires learning to redirect attention away from duration monitoring toward present moment acceptance. Some pain management techniques work specifically by altering temporal perception, helping sufferers develop a different relationship with the passage of time during difficult periods. Your brain maintains separate temporal processing systems for different types of future thinking. Planning concrete activities like scheduling appointments uses different neural networks than imagining abstract possibilities for your life. These systems can develop at different rates and can be affected independently by various factors. Some people excel at practical temporal planning but struggle with long-term visionary thinking, while others can imagine distant futures clearly but have difficulty with immediate scheduling. Understanding your personal temporal thinking strengths can help you develop better strategies for different types of planning and decision-making. Seasonal light patterns program your brain for different types of temporal thinking throughout the year. The long, dark nights of winter naturally promote introspective temporal awareness, encouraging reflection on past experiences and internal processing of memories. Summer's extended daylight hours create conditions that favor future-oriented thinking and active planning. These seasonal shifts in temporal cognition may explain why people often feel motivated to make major life changes during certain times of year, as their brains naturally shift toward different temporal orientations based on environmental light cues. Your digestive rhythm creates a secondary temporal awareness that can conflict with your conscious time sense. The hormonal cycles of hunger and satiation operate on their own schedule, which may not align with social meal times or work schedules. When these biological temporal rhythms clash with external demands, you can experience a form of temporal stress that affects mood, energy, and cognitive performance. Shift workers and frequent travelers often struggle with this digestive temporal mismatch, finding that their appetite and energy cycles remain anchored to previous time zones long after their conscious awareness has adjusted. The speed of your eye movements during reading reflects your internal temporal processing state. When you're relaxed and fully present, your eyes move smoothly across text in steady rhythms. During stress or temporal anxiety, eye movement patterns become irregular and rushed, often leading to decreased comprehension and retention. Some speed reading techniques work by training more efficient eye movement patterns, but they can also affect your overall relationship with temporal flow during focused activities. Your brain processes interruptions as temporal violations that require cognitive resources to resolve. Each interruption forces your mind to save its current temporal context, process the new information, then attempt to restore the previous temporal flow. This switching process consumes mental energy and can fragment your sense of continuous time. People who work in high interruption environments often report feeling temporally scattered, as if their consciousness is constantly being pulled between different time streams without the opportunity to settle into any single temporal flow. The ritual aspects of daily activities create temporal anchors that help organize your psychological sense of time. Morning coffee, evening walks, weekend traditions. These repeated activities serve as temporal landmarks that give structure and meaning to the passage of days and weeks. When these rituals are disrupted, many people experience temporal disorientation that goes beyond simple schedule inconvenience. The absence of familiar temporal anchors can make time feel shapeless and difficult to navigate, contributing to feelings of anxiety or depression. Your brain's prediction systems create temporal expectations that influence how you experience the actual unfolding of events. When something happens faster than expected, you might feel a sense of temporal compression or surprise. When events unfold more slowly than predicted, you experience temporal expansion or impatience. These temporal prediction errors are constantly being processed by your brain, helping to calibrate your internal models of how long different activities should take. Over time, these predictive systems become highly personalized, creating your unique temporal signature for different types of experiences. The texture of temporal experience changes dramatically during different types of creative work. Writing often involves a linear temporal flow where ideas build sequentially over time. Visual arts may create a more spatial temporal experience where different elements develop simultaneously. Musical creation involves rhythmic temporal patterns that can synchronize your consciousness with external beats and harmonies. Each creative medium shapes temporal awareness differently, training your brain to process time in ways that reflect the unique demands, particular form of that of expression. Your brain processes temporal information differently when you're learning something you're passionate about versus studying something required. Intrinsic motivation creates a kind of temporal lubrication that makes learning time feel smooth and effortless. When you're genuinely interested in material, hours can pass without conscious awareness of duration. Externally motivated learning often creates temporal friction, where every minute feels effortful and progress seems slow. This difference in temporal experience during learning can significantly affect retention, comprehension, and the development of expertise. The social synchronization of temporal rhythms creates invisible bonds between people who spend significant time together. Couples often develop synchronized sleep cycles, meal times, and even breathing patterns during shared activities. Close friends may find themselves naturally coordinating their energy levels and attention spans. These temporal synchronizations happen unconsciously through constant micro-adjustments in behavior and can create feelings of comfort and connection that are difficult to explain rationally. The disruption of synchronized rhythms, such as when partners develop conflicting schedules, can create relationship stress that operates below the level of conscious awareness. Your emotional relationship with past temporal experiences influences how you approach similar situations in the future. If you've had positive experiences with time pressure in the past, you're more likely to feel confident during future deadlines. Previous negative temporal experiences, like feeling rushed during important events, can create temporal anxiety that affects your performance in similar situations years later. These emotional temporal memories operate as background influences on your current time perception, shaping your responses in ways you might not consciously recognize. The physical environment of your workspace creates subtle temporal influences that affect productivity and well-being. Natural light that changes throughout the day helps maintain healthy temporal rhythms, while artificial lighting that remains constant can create temporal monotony. The presence of clocks can increase temporal awareness and anxiety, while their absence might promote deeper focus but reduce time management. Even factors like ceiling height and color schemes can influence how time feels during work activities, creating environmental temporal personalities that either support or hinder different types of tasks. Your brain processes temporal information differently during various stages of the sleep cycle. Light sleep often involves temporal experiences that blend reality with imagination, creating dreamlike sequences where time flows in unusual ways. Deep sleep typically involves minimal temporal awareness, with consciousness essentially pausing its normal time processing. REM sleep can create elaborate temporal narratives where hours of dream experience unfold in minutes of real time. These different sleep stage temporal experiences may serve important functions in memory consolidation and emotional processing. The practice of temporal mindfulness can transform your relationship with duration and urgency. Learning to observe your own temporal reactions without being controlled by them creates space between stimulus and response. You can notice when you're feeling rushed without automatically recognize temporal eating up, or anxiety without letting it dictate your behavior. This mindful awareness of temporal experience can reduce stress, improve decision-making, and create a more peaceful relationship with time's natural flow. Your personal temporal style influences everything from career satisfaction to relationship compatibility. Some people thrive on tight schedules and precise timing, while others perform better with flexible, intuitive approaches to time management. These temporal personality differences can create both synergy and conflict in professional and personal relationships. Understanding your own temporal style and recognizing others' temporal needs can improve communication and reduce friction in situations where different temporal approaches come into contact. The memory of temporal experiences often differs dramatically from the actual lived experience of those same events. A vacation that felt rushed and stressful while it was happening might be remembered as relaxing and restorative. A work project that seemed to take forever might be recalled as having passed quickly. These differences between experienced time and remembered time can influence how you make future decisions about similar activities. Your brain essentially creates two different versions of temporal experience, one for living through and another for storage and recall. Modern communication technology creates new forms of temporal stress that previous generations never experienced. The expectation of immediate response to messages creates a constant background temporal pressure, even during supposedly relaxing activities. The ability to access information instantly can make normal waiting periods feel unbearably long. These technological temporal demands can fragment attention and create a chronic sense of temporal urgency that persists even when there's no actual time pressure. Your brain's temporal processing systems can be overwhelmed by too much stimulation, creating a state of temporal overload. When you're juggling multiple deadlines, processing constant information streams, and managing complex schedules simultaneously, your temporal awareness can become fragmented and inefficient. This temporal overload often manifests as feeling like there's never enough time, even when your actual schedule isn't unusually demanding. Recovery from temporal overload typically requires periods of simplified temporal experience, where you can restore your brain's natural timing rhythms. The phenomenon of temporal displacement can occur during intense focus, where you become so absorbed in an activity that you lose all sense of duration and sequence. Artists, scientists, and craftspeople often report entering these temporal displacement states where hours pass unnoticed, and the normal boundaries between self and activity dissolve. These experiences suggest that your normal relationship with time is just one possible mode of consciousness, and that other temporal states are available when conditions allow for complete absorption in present moment activity. Your brain processes collective temporal experiences differently than individual ones. Shared temporal activities like group singing, dancing, or synchronized movement can create a sense of expanded temporal awareness where individual time consciousness merges into something larger. These collective temporal experiences often feel more meaningful and memorable than solitary activities of similar duration. The temporal bonding that occurs during shared rhythmic activities may explain why music, dance, and ritual have been central to human culture throughout history. The relationship between physical space and temporal experience creates what researchers call chronotopes, specific combinations of spatial and temporal characteristics that influence behavior and perception. A library chronotope encourages slow, reflective temporal experience, while a busy street creates rapid, fragmented time awareness. Your home likely contains multiple chronotopes, each supporting different temporal moods and activities. Understanding the chronotopic qualities of different spaces can help you choose environments that support the kind of temporal experience you want to cultivate. And as these final insights about time's mysterious nature settle into the quiet depths of your awareness like stones dropping into a still pond, you might notice how your own temporal experience has softened during this gentle exploration. How the usual urgency of minutes and hours has given way to something deeper and more natural. A recognition that time is not your enemy but your companion, not a force to be conquered but a river to be navigated with grace and wisdom. And in this recognition there comes a profound relaxation, a settling into the eternal present moment where all healing happens, all rest begins, and all true peace can finally be found. Your cultural background shapes your brain's fundamental relationship with temporal concepts in ways that persist throughout your entire life. Some languages describe time as flowing from behind you toward the front, with the past visible ahead because it can be known while the future remains hidden behind your back. Other cultures conceptualize time as circular rather than linear, where events repeat in cycles and the past continuously returns in new forms. These linguistic and cultural frameworks become embedded in your neural pathways during childhood, creating distinct temporal worldviews that influence how you make decisions, plan activities, and understand causation. Moving between cultures with different temporal orientations can create a kind of chronological culture shock that goes far deeper than simply adjusting to new schedules or social customs. The quality of silence in your environment affects how your brain processes temporal information during rest and reflection. Complete silence can make time feel suspended and infinite, while ambient sounds like gentle rain or distant traffic create temporal texture that helps your mind track duration more naturally. The absence of temporal cues in perfectly quiet spaces can be either deeply peaceful or slightly disorienting, depending on your personal relationship with silence. Some people find that moderate background sound actually improves their ability to enter meditative temporal states, while others require complete quiet to achieve temporal transcendence. Your individual silence preference reflects deeper aspects of how your brain processes temporal information during states of said external stimulation. Physical objects in your personal space can serve as temporal anchors that help organize your psychological relationship with past, present, and future. A childhood photograph might create a temporal bridge to earlier versions of yourself, while a planning calendar extends your awareness into future possibilities. The arrangement of these temporal objects influences how easily you can access different time periods mentally and emotionally. Some people surround themselves with historical artifacts that keep the past readily accessible, while others prefer minimalist spaces that focus attention on present moment experience. These environmental temporal choices reflect and reinforce your personal temporal orientation and can significantly affect your mood and cognitive performance. Your brain's processing of temporal sequences can be disrupted by information overload, creating a condition researchers call temporal fragmentation syndrome. When you're constantly switching between different information streams, responding to notifications, and juggling multiple tasks, your normal sense of temporal continuity can break down into disconnected moments. This fragmentation makes it difficult to form coherent memories or maintain sustained attention on any single activity. The constant temporal switching required by modern multitasking can leave you feeling like you're living in a series of brief, unconnected episodes rather than flowing through continuous time. Recovery from temporal fragmentation typically requires extended periods of single focus activity that allow your brain to restore its natural temporal integration processes. The phenomenon of temporal empathy allows you to sense and share the temporal experiences of others around you. When someone near you is feeling rushed and anxious about time, you might unconsciously begin to feel similar temporal pressure even when you have no actual time constraints. Conversely, being around someone who embodies calm presence can help slow down your own sense of temporal urgency. This temporal empathy operates through subtle behavioral mirroring and emotional contagion, creating shared temporal experiences that can either increase or decrease time-related stress. Understanding temporal empathy can help you choose companions and environments that support the kind of temporal experience you want to cultivate. Your brain maintains different temporal processing speeds for different types of cognitive tasks. Creative problem solving often requires slow, meandering temporal flow that allows ideas to develop organically over extended periods. Analytical thinking typically benefits from faster, more structured temporal processing that moves efficiently through logical sequences. Social interaction involves rapid temporal adjustments as you synchronize with others' communication rhythms and emotional states. These different cognitive temporal speeds can sometimes conflict with each other, creating internal temporal tension when you need to switch rapidly between different types of thinking. Learning to recognize and manage these temporal transitions can improve your effectiveness across various mental activities. The experience of temporal vertigo can occur when your normal time orientation becomes suddenly disrupted or destabilized. This might happen during major life transitions, after traumatic experiences, or during periods of intense change when familiar temporal landmarks disappear. Temporal vertigo creates a sensation of being unmoored in time, where past, present, and future lose their usual clarity and relationship. Some people experience this as liberation from normal temporal constraints, while others find it deeply unsettling. Recovery from temporal vertigo typically involves gradually rebuilding temporal structure and meaning through routine, ritual, and conscious temporal practices. Your personal temporal mythology consists of the stories you tell yourself about your relationship with time throughout your life. Some people develop heroic temporal narratives where they overcome time-related challenges through effort and discipline. Others create victim narratives where time is always working against them despite their best efforts. These temporal mythologies become self-fulfilling prophecies that influence how you approach deadlines, plan activities, and respond to temporal stress. Recognizing and potentially revising your temporal mythology can create opportunities for developing a healthier and more empowering relationship with time's passage. The practice of temporal gratitude involves consciously appreciating the gift of duration and the opportunity to exist within time's flow. This might include recognizing the precious nature of present moments, feeling thankful for memories that connect you to your past, or appreciating the hope and possibility that future time contains. Temporal gratitude can transform your relationship with waiting, aging, and even mundane daily activities by highlighting the remarkable nature of temporal existence itself. Regular practice of temporal gratitude often leads to reduced time anxiety and increased satisfaction with life's natural rhythms and transitions. Your brain processes temporal information differently during states of physical illness, often creating distorted relationships with duration that can persist long after physical recovery. Fever can accelerate your internal clock while making external time feel sluggish. Pain often stretches temporal experience, making minutes feel like hours. Medications can create various temporal side effects, from time compression to sequence confusion. These illness-related temporal distortions remind you how deeply interconnected your physical and temporal experiences are, and how health affects not just what you can do with time, but how time itself feels as it passes. The development of temporal wisdom involves learning to work with time's natural rhythms rather than constantly fighting against them. This includes recognizing when your energy and attention naturally peak and decline throughout different time cycles, understanding which activities benefit from rushed focus versus patient development, and accepting that some experiences simply cannot be hurried regardless of external pressure. Temporal wisdom often increases with age as people accumulate experience with time's various patterns and learn to distinguish between truly urgent situations and manufactured temporal stress. Your relationship with temporal uncertainty reflects deeper aspects of your personality and coping style. Some people thrive in situations where timing is unpredictable and flexible, finding energy and creativity in temporal spontaneity. Others require clear temporal structure and advance notice to function effectively, experiencing significant stress when temporal expectations are unclear. These individual differences in temporal uncertainty tolerance can affect everything from career choices to relationship compatibility, as different temporal styles can either complement or conflict with each other in various life situations. The concept of temporal justice involves recognizing that everyone deserves adequate time for rest, reflection, creativity, and personal development. Modern society often creates temporal inequalities where some people have abundant discretionary time, while others struggle with constant temporal scarcity. These temporal inequalities can perpetuate other forms of disadvantage, as adequate time is necessary for education, health maintenance, relationship building, and personal growth. Awareness of temporal justice can inspire more equitable approaches to work scheduling, family responsibilities, and community resource allocation. Your brain's temporal processing systems can be enhanced through specific types of physical exercise that require precise timing and coordination. Activities like martial arts, dance, and team sports train your nervous system to process temporal information more accurately and respond to changing temporal demands more effectively. These physical temporal training effects often transfer to other areas of life, improving your ability to estimate durations, manage schedules, and maintain temporal awareness during complex activities. Regular engagement with temporally demanding physical activities can serve as a form of temporal fitness training that enhances your overall relationship with time. The experience of temporal mastery occurs when you develop the ability to consciously modulate your relationship with time's passage according to situational needs. This might involve speeding up your temporal processing during emergencies, slowing down your time sense during moments you want to savor, or maintaining steady temporal awareness during routine activities. Temporal mastery represents a sophisticated form of consciousness that treats time perception as a skill that can be developed rather than a fixed aspect of experience. People who achieve temporal mastery often report feeling more in control of their lives and less victimized by external temporal demands. And now, as these final explorations of time's infinite complexity settle into the quieting spaces of your mind, like the last notes of a gentle symphony, you might find yourself suspended in a moment that feels both eternal and fleeting, where the boundaries between minutes and hours become as soft as moonlight on water, and where your breathing creates its own perfect rhythm that needs no clock to mark its passage, carrying you gently toward the timeless realm of sleep where all temporal concerns dissolve into the vast, peaceful darkness that cradles every dreaming soul. And so we reach the gentle end of our journey through time's endless mysteries, each revelation a small gift that illuminates the invisible dimension, carrying us from breath to breath, from heartbeat to heartbeat. Tonight we've wandered through the secret chambers of temporal experience, discovering how your brain stretches moments during danger, how childhood summers expand into infinity, how emotions can make seconds feel like hours or hours vanish like whispers. We've explored the hidden clocks ticking within your body, the way memories bend and shape your sense of duration, how waiting transforms time into something heavy or light depending on what you're waiting for. We've seen how temperature and caffeine, music and meditation, pain and pleasure all weave their influence through the fabric of your temporal experience, creating the rich tapestry of moments that make up a human life. Perhaps most wonderfully, we've discovered that time is not the rigid taskmaster it often seems to be, but something far more fluid and responsive to consciousness itself. Your relationship with time is not fixed, but malleable, shaped by attention, emotion, expectation, and awareness in ways both subtle and profound. These insights invite you to become a more conscious participant in your own temporal experience, to notice when time feels rushed and ask whether that urgency is real or imagined, to recognize when moments feel precious and allow yourself to inhabit them more fully, to understand that your perception of time's passage is not just something that happens to you, but something you participate in creating with every choice of where to place your attention. As you settle deeper into rest tonight, you might carry with you this gentle recognition that time, for all its mystery, is ultimately your companion rather than your master. Each moment you've been given is both ordinary and miraculous, part of an unfolding story that began billions of years ago and continues through your every breath. The clock on the wall will keep its mechanical rhythm, but you now know that the time that truly matters, the time you actually live within, moves to deeper rhythms, ones written into your heartbeat, your breathing, the gentle cycles of sleep and wake that carry you through each day like a river carrying a leaf toward the sea. Sleep well, knowing that even in dreams, time will continue its ancient dance, weaving past and future into the eternal present where all rest begins and all peace can finally be found.